Hello students, let us begin with the second part of the chapter, Should Wizard Hit Mummy? Those who did not see the first part, please go and see it first, then only you will be able to understand this one. And those who have seen, let us begin here. Last time, I left it where Jack he explained that the wizard asked Roger for 4 pennies as payment for the spell. However, Jack misspeaks and says Roger fish instead of Roger skunk. Joe is upset by the mistake, even as she does not seem to be particularly engaged in the story. Joe's lack of sincere engagement with the story annoys Jack since he is telling the story for his daughter's benefit. Downstairs, he hears Claire moving more furniture. He notes that she should not be moving heavy things as she is 6 months pregnant with their third child. Now let us read further. So the wizard said, "Oh, very well. Go to the end of the lane and turn around 3 times and look down the magic well, and there you will find 3 pennies. Hurry up." So Roger Skunk went to the end of the lane and turned around 3 times, and there in the magic well were 3 pennies. So he took them back to the wizard and was very happy and ran out into the woods, and all the other little animals gathered around him because he smelled so good. And they played tag, baseball, football, basketball, lacrosse, hockey, soccer, and pick up sticks. So here Jack he attempts to speed the story up. He explains that Roger returned to his friends who were now happy to play with him since he smelled like roses. The animals played until it was dark and then they went home to their mothers, and they played various games like baseball, football, basketball, soccer, hockey, pick up sticks. What's the pick up sticks? It's a game you play with sticks, like the wizard's magic wand. Kind of. And they played games and laughed all afternoon, and then it began to get dark, and they all ran home to their mummies. So here, Joe was not knowing what is pick up sticks. Her father he explained that it's a game which you play with sticks, and she compared it. She said that it is just like wizard's magic wand, and he said, yeah, sort of. And then he said that all these animals they played until it was dark, and then they went home to their mothers. Joe was starting to fuss with her hands and look out of the window at the crack of day that showed under the shade. So here, at this point, Jack notices that Joe is no longer listening to him, but fidgeting and looking out of the window as if the story was over. She thought that the story was all over. Jack didn't like women when they took anything for granted. So here Jack explains that this aggravates him, this irritates him because he doesn't like it when women take things for granted, preferring to keep them apprehensive and desperate to hear what he has to say next. So he says he did not like women taking things for granted. He liked them apprehensive, means fearful that about something bad or unpleasant going to happen. Hanging on his words, now Joe, are you listening? So here Jack's observation about uninterested women is another example of the ways in which his strained relationship with Claire transfers to how he views his daughter's behavior. The sweeping generalization also indicates that Jack views Claire and women more generally as seeking to undermine and infantilize him. The desire to keep women apprehensive is therefore overtly misogynistic, as it suggests that making women uncomfortable is the only way Jack feels he can reclaim power from them. In simple words, we all know that it's a male dominating society, and male they doesn't like female getting independent or taking their own decision. So Jack was also of the same kind, and he liked women to be apprehensive and not being in power. So he was also of the same thought. Now, continuing with the story, when he asked it, "Now, Joe, are you listening?" "Yes, because this is very interesting," Roger Skunk's mummy said. "What's that awful smell?" Now, in an effort to regain Joe's attention, Jack throws a wrench in his classic story. He tells Joe that when Roger gets home to his mother, she is repulsed by his scent, and what she says that, "What's that awful smell?" "What?" And Roger Skunk said, "It's me, Mummy. I smell like roses." And she said, "Who made you smell like that?" And he said, "The wizard." And she said, "Well, off all the nerve. You come with me, and we are going right back to that very awful wizard." So when mother, she got repulsed with by the scent, and she demanded that Roger should go back to the wizard and get changed back. Joe sat up, her hands dabbling. Dabbling means moving in the air with genuine fright, means an intense feeling of fear. "But daddy," then he said, "about the other little animals run away." Her hand skittered off into the underbrush. So she says, when she heard this, that they are going back, Joe is horrified with the twist, since Roger's old smell made the other animals run away. So here she says, "Ki, Daddy," then he must have said, Roger Skunk must have said about the other little animals that they run away. And her hands, they skittered off. They were moving very quickly and lightly into the underbrush. Underbrush means some small shrubs or herbs must be there, some indoor plants, and she was moving her hands in them, and moving her hands in them, she said that he must have told her mother that the other animals run away. "All right," he said. "But mummy, all the other little animals run away." So now when he heard that his daughter, she wants Roger Skunk to give this explanation to his mother, and he says, "Okay, all right, yes." He said that, "Mummy, all the other little animals run away." And she said, "I don't care. You smelled the way a little skunk should have, and I'm going to take you right back to that wizard." And she took an umbrella and went back with Roger Skunk and hit that wizard right over the head. So he explained that Roger's mother, she tells him that he smelled the way a skunk was supposed to smell. And the two, they go back to the wizard, and Roger Skunk's mother hits the wizard on the head. "No," Joe said. Joe does not accept this change in the story, and puts her hand out to touch his lips, and yet, even in her agitation, means anxiety, did not quite dare to stop the source of truth. Inspiration came to her. Then the wizard hit her on the head and did not change that little skunk bag. So she did not accept the change in the story, and she had put her hand on the lips, on father's lips. She tried to touch father's lips, stopping him from saying all this. And yet, even in her agitation, means in her anxiety, she did not quite dare to stop the source of truth. Means she did not stop thinking. Inspiration came to her, means she got an idea, and she said, then the wizard hit her on the head and did not change that little skunk bag. So here, she did not accept the change. She refused to accept this thing, and she was too young to have a concept of duty, and she does not accept Jack's story and views Roger's mother as the villain for refusing to allow Roger to have the acceptance of his peers. So when she said that Wizard hit her on the head. At this, father says, "No," he said. The wizard said, "Okay." So she demanded that wizard refuse to change Roger back, and instead it hit his mother on the head himself. Sensing her agitation, Roger explains that the wizard did in fact change Roger back, and he said, "Yes, okay, I will change his smell." And Roger's skunk did not smell of roses anymore. He smelled very bad again. But the other little Joanne, it's daddy's story. So when he Jack said, "Yes, wizard," he changed the smell of Roger's skunk back to that bad foul smell. So Joe, she interrupted again in between, saying, "Nahi, means she wanted to change it." But here, her father, he said, "Joanne, it's daddy's story." Means it is daddy's story, and whatever he is saying, I mean, he has uh, made this story, so it is his. Shall daddy not tell you any more stories? So here he asks her whether she wants to hear more stories from father or not. Her broad face looked at him through sifted light, means light that was coming from behind the curtains, astonished, surprised. This is what happened then. Roger Skunk and his mummy went home and they heard woo woo, and it was the choo choo train bringing Daddy Skunk home from Boston. So here he says that I mean, after getting the smell, the original smell back, Roger and his mother, they got home just in time for Roger's fathers to come home from work, and then the family, they ate a big dinner and they went to sleep. So here he says, and then they had lima beans, celery liver, mashed potatoes, and pie oh my for dessert. Dessert means sweet dish. And when Roger Skunk was in bed, Mummy Skunk came up and hugged him and said he smelled like her little baby skunk again, and she loved him very much. And that's the end of the story. So Roger, he explained that when Roger's mother went to kiss him good night, he smelled like skunk again, and she was very happy. So here we see that Joe, she doesn't accept Jack's story and views Roger's mother as villain for refusing to allow Roger to have the acceptance of his peers. So therefore Joe believes that Roger's mother should be punished for her transgressions. And Joe and Jack's fundamental disagreement at the end of the story reveals that as a child, Joe feels a duty only to herself and therefore cannot understand why Roger would compromise his happiness for his mother's. Means she is just a 4 year old girl, and I mean, small children, they think that the good things that is done to them, it is for their good. And what here, like mother of Roger's skunk, she changed the smell, awful roses smell into an awful smell, so that was not liked by Joe. She was not ready to take the decision of mother, or it shows that now she is growing up and she ask questions, right or wrong, she wants to know. So basically she is uh, raising questions, and of course Jack is not liking it because uh, Jack, as we read or as we discussed in the earlier lines, that he wanted women to be apprehensive, to be listening to their male counterparts and not arguing with them. Now let us continue. So the story ends over here. I mean, the story of Roger Skunk. But daddy, what? then the other little animals run away? No, because eventually they got used to the way he was and did not mind it at all. Eventually means finally, ultimately. So Joe said that the other animals now they would run away from Roger Skunk, but he says कि नहीं, finally those animals they got used to the smell of Roger Skunk and now they did not mind it. They had accepted him as he was. What's eventually? She's not able to. She's a 4-year-old girl and she's not able to pronounce eventually. So she is saying, "What's eventually?" And in a little while, that was a stupid mummy. It was not, he said with rare emphasis, and believed from her expression that she realized he was defending his own mother to her or something as odd. So, here when she said that what is eventually, he said that in a little while, then she says that she was a stupid mummy and he says nay, it was not. He said with rare emphasis means which doesn't occur regularly, and with special emphasis, with special value given to it, and believed from her expression, he understood from his daughter's expression that she realized he was defending his own mother to her or something as odd. Means she felt that father is defending his own mother, something like that, or something strange. Means he is trying to say that mother is always right and she thinks good of her children. Now I want you to put your big heavy head in the pillow and have a good long nap. So now he says that now the story is over and I want you to go to sleep, a long nap. He adjusted the shade, means the curtains, so not even a crack of day showed, means daylight, and tiptoed to the door in the pretense. Tiptoed means walked quietly in the pretense in an attempt that she was already asleep, thinking that she was asleep. But when he turned, she was crouching on top of the covers and staring at him. Crouching means squatting. Squatting means when you sit on floors with your knees on your, how will I say, squat. I mean, the way people sit with their legs folded on ground. So she was crouching on top of the covers on the sheets and staring at her father. Hey, get under the covers and fall fast asleep. Bobby's sleep. So he tells her that you get under your sheet and go to sleep quickly. Your brother is sleeping. She stood up and bounced gingerly, means very cautiously, on the springs. Daddy, springs here is for the mattresses. Daddy, what? Tomorrow I want you to tell me the story that wizard took that magic wand and hit that mummy. Her plump arms chopped forcefully right over the head. So she said the okay, tomorrow please tell me the story the way she wants, and she wants to hear the story in her own way, where wizard he took the magic wand and hit the mummy on her head, and her plump arms, her fat arms, they chopped forcefully. Chopped forcefully means in a chopping way. It showed right overhead, means the way you, if you want to show something like this, how to hit on the head, and you will show with your hand, so that way as if it is chopping forcefully. So with that thing she showed to her father. No, that's not the story. The point is that the little skunk loved his mummy more than he loved all the other little animals, and she knew what was right. So He tells her that no, it is not the story. The story is what I told you. And he says that now the little skunk, he loved his mummy more than his friends. And because he knew that his mother was right. So, uh, here, Joe's insistence that Roger's mother be punished is just a further indication that she is using story time to process a real element of her family dynamic. Her parents' unhappy and potentially violent relationship means her parents, they are not in a good relationship. So she is. Trying to put that real element of her family in the story. And here maybe husband is violent, and maybe he hits his wife, so he wants that wife should also hit husband in return. No, tomorrow you may, you say he hit that mummy, so she is insisting that she wants the story this way. And she says that nay, no, you will be saying that tomorrow that yes, wizard had hit mummy. Do it. She kicked her legs up and sat down on the bed with a great heave and complained of springs as she had done hundreds of times before, except that this time she did not laugh. Say it, daddy. Means every time, whenever a story was told her, and when the story was not according to her wish, she, she had hit her legs, or she had showed tantrums. But this time it was different, because every time she used to laugh while nagging, but this time she did not laugh, and she is asking her father that you say it, daddy, that you are going to tell the story the way I want. Well, we will see. Now at least have a rest, stay on the bed, you are a good girl. So he tells her, okay, we will see tomorrow, but today you take a rest and you be on bed and behave like a good girl. He closed the door and went downstairs. Claire had spread the newspapers and opened the paint can, and wearing an old shirt of his on top of her maternity smock. Smock is a loose fitting garment worn by pregnant women, or stroking. Stroking means moving, uh, I mean, painting the chair rail with a dipped brush. Above him, footsteps vibrated and he called, Joanne, shall I come up there and spank you? Spank you means slap you. The footsteps hesitated, means when he was downstairs, he could see the steps moving uh, above, and then he shouted to his daughter, saying that, are you, do you want father to come and spank you? And the steps, they hesitated, means they stopped moving. That was a long story, Claire said. So here, Claire, she said that the story was too long. I mean, he took too much time in finishing it or putting the girl to bed. Uh, The poor kid, he answered with utter weariness, means tiredness. So yeah, getting, yes, the poor child. I mean, she was not going to bed, so he had to continue with the story. And with utter weariness means with tiredness, because the story was too long. And he watched his wife labor, means doing physical work. The woodwork, a cage of moldings and rails and baseboards. All around them was half old tan and half new ivory. So here he started looking at the woodwork around him and started relating it to his life. He was saying that half of the furniture was in old tan color and half was new ivory, and he felt caught in an ugly middle position. Ugly middle position explains here that uh, he wanted to help his wife, but he was unable to do so because he was telling story to his daughter. So he was, I mean, like he that was an ugly middle position for him, because he was not able to satisfy his daughter also the way she wanted to hear the story, and on the other hand his wife also needed his help, but he was not there to do it. So he says that he felt in an ugly middle position. And further he says that though he as well felt his wife's presence in the cage with him, he did not want to speak with her, work with her, touch her, anything. So, in this story, it is clearly indicated that both Jack and Claire, they had different ideologies. Jack used to follow his mother's ideas that parents were always right and loved women, hanging on his words, whereas Claire was an independent and tactful woman, which is indicated on several occasions in the chapter. For example, when Claire sees that Jack took too longer than usual to put Joe to bed, she doesn't ask straightway the reason for delay. She rather inquires by saying that that was a long story. And when she sees that Jack is taking longer than usual, she doesn't wait for him and starts painting the furniture herself. So the last line indicate that both Jack and Claire, although being a couple, were poles apart. They were bound to each other in a cage of marriage, which is metaphorically represented by the woodwork and moldings. Both had different ways of bringing up Jo and inculcating values in her. So, this difference of perspective makes Jack tired, and he wants to flee away from the cage of marriage in which he is stuck with his wife. And also, we can say that when he came down to help his wife, he saw the furniture laid around in a mess. Some was old and tanned, while the other was new ivory. This created a dilemma in his mind, and he thought of old furniture as the old way of thinking, in which parents were considered equivalent to God and children had to agree to all their decisions, whereas the new furniture represented the liberty, freedom, and ability of the child to question his or her parents. This made Jack think about his childhood days and how he was humiliated, and he succumbed to whatever he was told. And on the other hand, his daughter and wife, they were completely independent and strong, and this made him feel weak and dejected, and he did not want to talk or touch anyone, not even his wife. So he was a kind of a person who believed that children should do what parents tell them to do. Parents must not be questioned. And similarly, he felt that men were always superior to women. And that is why he is not able to accept the fact that his wife had started painting without waiting for him. And as I said, that he did not feel like being with her because of the marriage in which they were not happy with each other, because they were poles apart and of different ideologies. So this is the meaning of this last paragraph. I think you must have understood it now. Coming to the question answers, the first one I discussed it in the beginning only, that what is the moral issue that the story raises. Issues are like where the children, they should not question parents, and should accept their decision without any argument. So, and another one is that he says that yes, the different ideologies of the uh, husband and wife, and Also, that should parents always decide what the children should do, or let the children do what they like to do. Second is, how does Joe want the story to end and why? Actually, Jack here, he ends the story in a way that seems unusual to Joe. Because in her dream world, the wizard is a miracle worker. And she can't digest the statement that the little skunk's mother hit the wizard right on his head with her umbrella, and he agreed to do what she desired. Roger Skunk did not smell of roses anymore, he smelled very bad again. Joe did not want the story to end this way. She had in mind the pleasure of all the little animals. She says, "But daddy," then he said, "about the other little animals run away." Her father, he admits it, and he agrees that Roger Skunk told his mother, but the mother, she did not bother about that, and she bluntly said that, "I don't care. I want my child to smell the way he should." So Joe, she can't digest the ending that mother hit the wizard right over her the head, and he made Roger Skunk smell very bad again. So she suggested to her father to end the story in another way, where the wizard hit her on the head and did not change the little skunk back. She wanted that stupid mummy to be punished and insisted repeatedly on the change ending next night till her father agreed to consider it, saying, "Well, we will see." Why does Jack insist that it was the wizard that was hit and not the mother? Here, Jack, he had the typical parental attitude. He was of the opinion that the parents know what is best for their children, and he asserted the parental authority time and again to Quinton, Joe, and stifle objections and amendments to the story of the foul smelling skunk related by him. He defended the attitude of Roger Skunk's mother. She did not approve of the unnatural, skunk like smell that Roger had. She called the sweet smell of the roses an awful smell. Earlier, the little skunk smelled the way a little skunk should, so she wanted the natural characteristic restored, that is, the foul smell. Father said that mother knew what was right, and secondly, she loved. He says that skunk loved his mummy more than he loved all the other animals, and that is why he took his mummy to the wizard. And mother hit the wizard and forced him to change the smell of roses. So father here insisted on this ending to emphasize the concern of the parents for children and their role in bringing them up on proper lines. What makes Jack feel caught in an ugly middle position? He was caught in an ugly middle position, physically, emotionally, as well as mentally. He was conscious of his duties as a father and as a husband. His efforts to make Joe fall asleep proved quite fatiguing because she kept on interrupting him and asking for clarifications, pointing errors, and suggesting alternatives. And Jack did not like that women should take anything for granted. He liked them to be apprehensive. So he extended the story, though he was in a haste. He was in a hurry to go downstairs and help his pregnant wife in her hard work of painting the woodwork. The result of the extension of the story proved unfruitful and unpleasant for Joe, Jack, and Claire. Joe wanted him to change the ending of the story. Claire complained that he had told a long story. Jack felt utter weariness and did not want to speak with his wife or work with her or touch her. He was really caught in an ugly middle position. Now, what is your stance regarding the two endings to the Roger Skunk story? So, here, I mean, it is what is your viewpoint regarding the two endings of the story? So, you answer it yourself. What is your view on this? Why is an adult's perspective on life different from that of a child? Of course, an adult's perspective on life is different from that of a child because of the difference between their respective experiences and exposure to the world around them. An adult comes across all sorts of experiences, good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant, happy or sad, encouraging or discouraging. The child lives a sheltered life under the protection and love of his parents. In their rosy dream world of fairies and wizards, nothing good is impossible for their favorite characters. Their adoration of these characters is nothing short of hero worship. The world of make believe makes the children lovers of romance, beauty, and all things pleasant in nature. These characters and their super feats, which appear so real in stories, may not be real at all in real life. The adults who are familiar with harsh realities of life know that all that glitters is not gold. Everything is not honey. They accept things critically with a pinch of salt. Children usually lack this quality. With this, we come to an end of this chapter. I hope you understood it. If not, for any queries, ask me in the group. Thank you.